I have no words for this one. If you're like me and you're a big fan of Cobalt Press, I've got some very big news, because starting this September, me and Cobalt Press will be working very closely together to give you guys reviews of some of their new and coolest products. If you do not know who they are, their products range from a monsters manual with more than 400 monsters in it to a completely fleshed out campaign setting called Midgard. They have a hero's handbook that has new archetypes, divine characters, spells, schools of magic and all kinds of crazy other stuff, and they have a lot of new very cool releases to be coming very soon, which I of course will also feature on this channel. Okay, in all seriousness now, there are some very good dungeon modules on the market for Dungeons and Dragons right now. There are even some very great dungeon modules. There are some awesome dungeon modules on the market for Dungeons and Dragons right now, and then there is this one. I am in no way, anyway, endorsed by this company that created Maze of the Blue Medusa, so I'm not telling you guys that this is great because I'm getting paid or anything. I just got this review copy 2 or 2.5 weeks ago. I've been reading it and I'm totally blown away. I thought I've read some of the greatest dungeon modules out there, and then I got my hands on this guy and I don't even know where to start on how freaking awesome it is. And the guys who created it even have sent me a discount code for you guys. So the first 10 people to buy it using my promo code Tarask while checking out, you can get 10% off, but only the first 10 people to do that actually get the 10% off to buy Maze of the Blue Medusa. So once you get this package in your mailbox and you open it up and you hold this thing in your hands, you immediately realize you're holding something special, because this isn't just a hardcover book, this is actually one of those real hardcover books. And by that I mean it's one of those ribbly hardcover fabrics that has some artwork almost glued on top of it, but it's very well done and it actually makes it very cool. It has these nice silvery letters embedded into the hardcover. It's like a really sturdy type of book. It's almost like a special edition, but then it is just not a special edition, because this is actually just a standard hardcover edition, and it is amazing quality. The moment you hold it, you're like, okay, I'm holding something special, and you are holding something special. So like I said, the Maze of the Blue Medusa is kind of a mega dungeon like we know it, but this one is a little bit special because it is inside of, or at least you have to go through a painting, this painting, to enter the dungeon. So you could say that this dungeon lives inside this painting, but you have to go through this painting to enter the dungeon. And right here is the painting that has every room of the dungeon with some very cool artwork. And this is type of artwork. I know I ramble a lot about artwork, and I think Cobalt Press's artwork is very cool. The standard 5th edition artwork is very cool, and there are some other companies like Loresmith that does some really cool artwork. This is different though. You really need to be a fan of this kind of artwork to appreciate it, but once you do, it's amazing because it just feels like somebody has been making canvas paintings inside a book and built a dungeon out of that. But if that's not your thing, well, the dungeon is also laid out in here with every room numbered. So I want to immediately jump into why I think this book is so amazing. Yes, there's good artwork, yes, there is good writing, yes, there is a good story, but all of that is just good. It's just very good, but it's not completely freaking awesome like what you're going to see right now. And the thing I'm going to show you is so freaking simple that at first you're going to think like, that's not that special, but yeah, once you're using it, it's actually freaking special. So let's say your players are in room, I'm just going to say something, room 192. They're right here in room 192. You can immediately see the first convenience. Yes, the entire dungeon has been split up into colors. Okay, they're split up into colors. Wow, a small child could think of that. Of course it's good, but Just stay with me for a small moment here. They're in room 192, right? So you as a dungeon master, this book has been built so that you have to flick these pages as less as you possibly can. So you know they're in a orange room. They're in an orange part of the dungeon. So the first thing you do is watch these corners right here of the book, and the first thing in a book you see is always the top right corner. That's the first thing you see when you open a book. So in the top right corner you just go to the orange, where are they? Okay, orange. It's very hard to do this way, so just stay with me. Once you have it on the table, you realize how cool it is. You just go to the orange part of the dungeon. Okay? Cool. The first thing you see is the top right part of a dungeon. So once you're of a book, so once you're flicking through this, you're always looking at the top right corner. And the first part is always a map that actually shows you where your players are in the dungeon. So you just need to open the correct page. Then you know they are in room 192, and as you can see there's numbers right here, and we're now 173 to 182. So we have to go through the orange part a bit. Again, it is so conveniently well placed that I have a very hard time doing this because it's very hard to do in front of the camera, but you get the idea. Once you get to the good part of the book, the next convenience shows up, and that's, first of all, you get this amazing part of the painting that the entire dungeon is about, and all of the rooms, and every room has one little sentence of description that if you've already read the room in advance, if you already read the part of the adventure of the dungeon in advance, that's one sentence will allow you as a dungeon master to know what's going on. You will immediately start describing to your players what they see and what's going on. Alright? While you're doing that, you can actually look at room 192, and then there's here a little piece of text. 192, room 192, which is called Teeth Wheels, which is also right here. And Teeth Wheels, if you already read that, you probably already know what's going on. But then there is a small piece of text that reminds you even more what's going on. So while you are describing what you know from looking here, you are actually reading and looking at this one, and you keep describing because you're getting more information while you're making a description of a room. Then it says more. On the next page, every room that's in here, 191, 192, all the way to 200, has a longer description on the next page. So the thing is, so there's room 192, and then there's the stats for this room or whatever you need to do. So the difference with any other Dungeons and Dragons book is that you are flicking through the pages, but at the same time you're already describing to your players what's going on, because the book gives you these hints of what's going on as a dungeon master. So if you have already read the stuff that's going on in this room, if you've only read it once, these sentences and these hints will already tell you what's going on. And I always have a feeling that in other books there is this wall of text, and once they enter a room and it's a room you don't know where it is in the book, you're like searching in the book, and you're looking up what's exactly going on. So you're first reading this entire piece of text and then you're describing it to the players. Well, that stops right here because you're so fast at looking up a room in this book. The only thing you need to do is just oh, they're in the blue part of the dungeon. No problem, the blue part of the dungeon. What room? 195. Okay, they're in room 195. You just go like this. Sorry, 265. Okay, 265. Right, cool. They're in 265. Petrified specters. If you've already read about those petrified specters, you probably know what's going on. But anyway, you start describing these petrified specters in this room, and if you have a hard time remembering what it was, then you just read this little piece of text, and normally you should remember what it is. If after that you can't remember what it is, you just flip the page, go to 165, and there's the entire description of the entire room with the stats of the monsters with it. And I cannot stress out enough how important and how good this little feature is in this module, because just for example, when your players are going through this dungeon and they're in some sort of room, they're in room 202, you know that if they're taking a left turn, or sorry, a right turn or a left turn, or they're going straight ahead, you have a very fast way of knowing what's going on. For the matter of fact, once they're in one room, you can already read hints about the other rooms that are surrounding it. So if they go into one of those rooms, you immediately already know what's going on inside that room by just reading small pieces of text while your players are making an action or they're just talking to each other. You just read these small pieces of text and you already know what's going on in the other room. These are little conveniences that really set this thing apart from other Dungeons & Dragons Mega Dungeon modules. And all of that is me not even talking about how cool the dungeon actually is, but I do not want to spoil too much of that stuff for you guys, but it's because it's just so freaking weird and awesome, because it's a maze of a blue medusa. So what do you expect? Of course, a lot of great riddles. There's a lot of like magic fountains, and there's some weird random encounters. Yes, this book is full of very cool random encounter tables, and there's also an entire cast of characters with their own stories and reasons why they're inside of this this dungeon, like mini stories and mini side quests your players can take, and it really adds to the replayability of this dungeon. And there's also a certain kind of simplicity to this module, which I really like. For example, the cast of characters, there are all kinds of characters your players can encounter, and they all have just a name, they have a room where you can encounter them, then they have a small description, something they want and something that they don't want. So this book really fills in 95% of what you need to know as a dungeon master, and the last 5 to 10% maybe you have to fill in for yourself, which makes for a great module. Oh, and there's a cool thing inside this book, so you know where you are inside the book. I really love that. And all of the creatures your players can encounter are very simply laid out for you as a dungeon master. They came up with a very simple system. For example, there's this there's this human guy you can encounter. He has an armor class of 14. We all know what that is. He has 7 hit dice. We all know what that is. And his attack is a d6. So you're probably thinking, okay, but what is his attack bonus? It's very simple. They just came up with a system that their attack bonus is always +1 for every hit die they have. So this guy gets a +7 on his attack rolls and does 1d6 damage. And of course, if you need to know how many hit points he has, just roll 7d6. And then of course, after these very simple stat blocks that have the basics for an attack and some defense, you get their special abilities just laid out in a very convenient little piece of text. So the only question that remains is, do you think that your players are able to kill her? So I've came to the conclusion that I have a very hard time describing to you people why I think Maze of the Blue Medusa is so freaking awesome. All I can say is you need to try it for yourself. And if you're one of the first 10 people to hit the link in the description below, use my code Tarask while checking out, you can get 10% off your purchase of Maze of the Blue Medusa. So make sure to check that one out because it's really worth it. So that was my small rambly review of Maze of the Blue Medusa. If you want to see any other of my reviews, make sure to hit one of these videos right here and it will magically, of course, teleport you to the right video. Also, if you like this video, make sure to hit the thumbs up. If you have any questions about any module, make sure to hit me up in the comments below. I will try to answer every comment as long as that's manageable, of course. I hope your inspiration may guide you.